From the nation's capital, the Conservative Caucus presents Conservative Roundtable, an in-depth look at today's most important issues.
Welcome to Conservative Roundtable. I'm Howard Phillips, chairman of the Conservative Caucus, which sponsors this broadcast. Our special guest for this program is attorney Jim Clymer of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Jim Clymer is the national chairman of the Constitution Party, which is the third largest political party in the United States in terms of registered voters. Jim, tell us about the Constitution Party, what it is, what you do as chairman, etc.
Well, the Constitution Party started as the U.S. Taxpayers Party in 1992. It was formed in 1992, and you were, of course, our first presidential candidate in that year. And it has grown steadily since then. In 1999, we changed the name to the Constitution Party to perhaps more accurately reflect what it is about.
It's really a good name, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, there are a lot of people who didn't want to be taxpayers, and so they objected to the name Taxpayers Party, even though the reason for that name initially was that it was representing the taxpayers rather than the tax takers.
Let me interrupt you here. I'm frequently asked when I do radio interviews, you say you're the Constitution Party, but does that mean you support the entire Constitution, including all of the amendments? How do you answer that?
Well, yeah, I get asked that question also, and my answer, the best I can, is to say, well, we support the principles that undergird the Constitution as originally written, and we recognize the Constitution as originally written provided a means of amendment, and certainly some of the amendments were appropriate, and where they're appropriate, we would support them. But for now, I would say, yes, we support the entire Constitution. And if it's to be amended, if there are some parts of it we don't like, especially some of the amendments perhaps, then there is a means for amending that. And rather than doing it by judicial decree, as the courts would do it, we would set about doing it by the democratic process and by the process that's contained in the Constitution itself. And getting...
democratic is a fighting word.
I know that. I wanted to get your dander up on that one.
Yeah, why don't you explain whether the Constitution Party believes in the idea of America as a democracy or as a republic?
Well, we certainly don't believe it as a democracy. We believe it as a republic. It's a constitutional republic. But that doesn't. But there are still democratic processes even in a constitutional republic, and that's the way in which I use the word democratic process.
What is it that distinguishes a republic from a democracy?
Well, democracy, of course, by the definition of the term, is that people rule, and pure democracy, of course, would be where everybody gets to vote on virtually everything, that every decision of government, whereas a republic, or in our case a constitutional republic, it is by representative government, and there are different levels, but generally the people elect representatives who then are sworn to follow the Constitution and will represent the interests of their constituents in the national and the federal Congress.
Do you believe that the President and the Congress faithfully adhere to the Constitution as written?
No, absolutely not.
Give me some examples.
Well, good example, most people, if you go out and ask the average person on the street, what can Congress do? What authority does it have? They would say, in so many words, well, anything that a majority of Congress votes for and the President signs into law, they can do. And they have no concept of the fact that our Constitution sets up our federal government as one of limited delegated authority. It only has such powers as the states have given it, have granted it in the Constitution, and then just to make sure, in case they didn't understand, the 10th Amendment comes along, and my paraphrase says that if if we, the states, didn't give you, the federal government, certain powers, you don't have it. Those powers are reserved. Anything that's not specifically delegated to you, the federal government, is reserved to the states or to the people. So every time somebody votes for the Department of Education, or for funding education, or for the National Institute of Health, or the National Endowment for the Arts, or the Department of Agriculture, any funding like that, there's nowhere in the Constitution where there's any authority given to Congress to spend a dime on those types of things. So those are a few examples where...
Well, there are many judges and legislators, and indeed presidents, who say the Constitution is a living document, that just as, according to Darwin, we evolve, so does the Constitution evolve. So isn't it therefore permissible, as most Republicans and Democrats would argue, to have the Constitution brought in line with the changes in the world in which we live? I mean, when it was written, there were no telephones, no televisions, no automobiles, no airplanes. Doesn't that mean that we have to disregard some of the original strictures in the Constitution?
Yeah, well, when you use words like living and dynamic, and it all sounds so wonderful, and one is drawn to those kinds of terms when describing a document like the Constitution. But of course, it's a fallacy, because once you adopt that, and I know we have a senator from Pennsylvania who follows that, who promotes that in many ways. But once you start doing that, you're really saying that the Constitution will mean whatever any particular court or any particular judge says it means at any given time in history.
Shouldn't
There's no
it be
stability.
I mean, who can decide what it means? Shouldn't the judges have the final say about what it means?
They... no, in a word, no. I mean, their job, yes, is to interpret the law, but they're to do it within the boundaries of the document itself, and that's where they're supposed to look to for their guidance, and they can't. It's certainly improper for them. It's illegal for them to define things like public policy and let that type of thing, or foreign law, as we see here recently, where the Supreme Court's even referring to foreign law in helping to make its decisions. They're supposed to look at the original intent, original understanding of those who wrote the Constitution and try to deduce that correctly.
Who has the right to interpret the Constitution?
Well, I think we all have the right to interpret the Constitution. I think certainly the executive, I think they all... law is the search for truth. In one aspect of law is the search for truth. And we all should be searching for it. Now, even one misconception I think a lot of Americans has is that you have to be a lawyer or a judge or somebody like that to understand the Constitution. And of course, our Constitution was written, I think, for laymen. Of course, the laymen of that day,
sort of like the Bible.
Sort of like the Bible, that's right. And anyone can read it, and I don't subscribe to those who think that you have to have some special education to understand the Bible either.
So you believe in the priesthood of all believers?
I believe in the priesthood of all believers, indeed I do.
And that's true of the Constitution as well?
Yes, I do. Yes, indeed. And I think anyone with the basic education can read and understand the Constitution. And
one of the reasons I admire Andrew Jackson is that when he got into an argument with the Supreme Court over the second bank of the United States, Mr. Biddle's Bank, and the Supreme Court said it's constitutional, and Jackson said, I don't think it is, and the court is entitled to its opinion, but insofar as the executive branch is concerned, I decide what the Constitution means. Right. Lincoln and Jefferson said similar things at various points in our history.
Yes, and I admire them for that also.
So the court then is under the Constitution, not over it.
Absolutely.
Why then does Congress let the court get away with deciding things like homosexual marriages and Pledge of Allegiance and school prayer, things like that?
Well, it's kind of hard to say which came first there, the chicken or the egg.
Abortion.
Because In part, the courts have overstepped their bounds, and it's this whole concept that the Constitution is a living, evolving document that changes to meet the needs of the time that bring on these kind of ridiculous decisions, like deciding that an unborn child isn't a person and therefore has no protection under the Constitution, or that the words "under God" in the Pledge of Allegiance are somehow a violation of the First Amendment, and that the states have no right to proscribe homosexual conduct and things like that.
Where in the Constitution will you find the phrase separation of church and state?
Well, it doesn't exist in
it's
the
not in
U.S.
the Constitution, is it?
No, absolutely not.
Where in the Constitution will you find the term life tenure for judges?
Doesn't exist.
It's not there.
It's not there.
We have to take a break. Stay with us, and we'll learn more about the strategy and philosophy of the Constitution Party of the United States, America's third largest political party. Stay with us. One of the top leaders in the Communist Chinese military declared that the United States is the main enemy of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the People's Republic of China, which is longhand for what we call China. We have been building up our enemy, if that is a reciprocal term, by giving them most favored nation status and membership in the World Trade Organization. Last year alone, that gave them an $84 billion advantage in money which is fungible. And as a result of the extra money they have, they're not only taking jobs from the United States, they're increasing their military budget by 17% a year. It's time to stop sending technology and dollars to Communist China.
The Conservative Caucus, www.conservativeusa.org or 703-938-9626.
Face the Truth is a production of the Conservative Caucus and is seen twice monthly on the station you are watching. We will be interviewing the movers and shakers of the pro-life movement. We hope to educate and even inspire you about what is being done in our country to protect and to promote the sanctity of life. Please watch us.
Don't miss Face the Truth with Stephen Peruka and Conservative Roundtable with Howard Phillips right here on this station every week.
Here's how you can become a citizen lobbyist and influence how your representatives vote. Write a letter to your congressmen and senators. Speak out on a call-in talk radio program. Write a letter to the editor of your local newspaper and call the Conservative Caucus for more information at 703-938-9626.
Help the Arbor Day Foundation plant more trees across the nation. Plant a tree today for all the world to share.
Go to arborday.org.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys. Thanks a lot for all you guys have done.
Thank you. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I am the port in the storm.
I am the line in the sand. My boss won't start us.
I am the enforcer of the sea.
The United States Coast Guard will feed you and prepare your borders.
We are the defenders of the homeland. We are the shield of freedom. We are the United States Coast Guard.
Heed your country's call. Join the Coast Guard or Coast Guard Reserve.
Welcome back. I'm Howard Phillips, and our guest is Jim Clymer, chairman of the Constitution Party. Jim, frankly, most people don't even know there is a Constitution Party. What good is it to have a party of which most Americans are totally unaware, and how can you overcome that lack of awareness?
Well, it's a good question. We're still trying to figure that out. However, I mean, I would say that it's easy to look at it that way, and it's easy to focus on what we don't have. And with this day of where television is everything, and where the major media networks determine what is news and what isn't news by what they cover, it's very difficult to break through that. And that's something we struggle with. But one thing we do have, on the other hand, we have the Internet. And with the Internet, we have ways of reaching people outside the normal channels. And it's one person at a time. It's one contact at a time. And we've been very successful in spreading the word through these new forms.
If you'll permit me, my own view is that the most important thing being done by the Constitution Party is the recruitment and training of cadres at the grassroots level all over the country. And there are Constitution Party people in every state of the Union. And I believe that the time may come when the two visible parties collapse, where there may be various crises which enable those who are part of the political dialogue by virtue of their membership in the party, who understand the political process, may be in a position to bring those policies to power. Success is a combination of preparation and opportunity. And what you're doing is preparing people for an opportunity which we pray will come.
Well, that's right. And, you know, as they say, duty is ours and the results are God's. And we're here to build a party. We're here to do what's right and be prepared for the time the opportunity comes. When David was out in the field taking care of his sheep and killing the lion and the bear and so on, he was in training. He didn't even understand the opportunity that was going to come to him someday, but that opportunity came. When it came, he was ready and was able to
God put him through a series of things that prepared him for a great role in history as time went on. How does one become a member of the Constitution Party?
Well, okay, really the Constitution Party is a collection of state parties, and we don't specifically have membership of the National Party, of which I'm the chairman, but you become a member of the Constitution Party by becoming a member, first and foremost, becoming a member of the state affiliate of the...
And by way of full disclosure, I'm the chairman of the Virginia affiliate.
Okay, yes. So Virginia determines, for example, what is required for membership. Now, and there are different states do things different ways. One way, of course, is just say if you register in the Constitution Party, you're a member of that party in the state, but some states don't allow you to register by party.
In Virginia, we do not have party registration, but people can pay dues to our party and become official members in that way. And, of course, there are many other ways they can help as candidates, as petitioners, etc. Now, here's a question many people ask. Let's say you've got a guy like Tom Coburn, who's running for the U.S. Senate in Oklahoma, and who was a member of Congress before he term limited himself out of office. Does the Constitution Party believe it should run a candidate for every office, even against someone like Coburn, who frankly is with us on just about every issue?
Yeah. Well, there may be some disagreement on that within the party, but I think the predominant view, which is my view, is that no, we should not.
My view also.
I don't, and I say that. For somebody who's with us on 95% of the issues, we have other battles to fight.
Sure.
More important battles to fight than to go against those
here in
who
Virginia. If there is an outstanding congressman, such as we have in Virgil Goode, I'll support that candidate. Even though I don't live in Texas, I'll contribute to Ron Paul, whatever his party label may be.
Exactly.
And I've supported Democrats with whom I agree. But in most cases, there is not a constitutionally faithful candidate, and we should try to recruit people to compete for office, whether it's at the state level or the federal level or the local level.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think we have a limited number of resources, and it certainly makes most sense to pick our battles carefully, pick our battles wisely, and get engaged where we can make the biggest difference.
What is the mission statement of the Constitution Party?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know that I have the mission. You probably got me on that one.
Well, according to the stationery, it is to restore the republic by limiting the federal government to its delegated, enumerated constitutional functions, and restoring American jurisprudence to its biblical common law foundations. I remember the meeting at which that was hammered out, debated, and crafted.
As do I, and I just was on the wrong track there momentarily, but I need to memorize that too.
And as you look ahead, what can be done in the near term to challenge the two major parties on issues where they're so out of sync with the Constitution? Republicans and Democrats support NAFTA, the UN, the World Trade Organization, socialized medicine, colossally unbalanced budgets. You know, it's an irony. According to a respected journalist, Bill Clinton was our most conservative president since Eisenhower, not because he wanted to be, but because we had gridlock, and the Republican Congress blocked the Democratic president at that time. Interestingly, when Clinton left office, his last deficit was his last budget was a $200 billion surplus. Clinton, for the current fiscal year, has proposed, Bush, for the current fiscal year, has proposed a deficit of $422 billion. I mean, whatever the issue is, more money for the National Endowment for the Arts, joining UNESCO, rejoining it after Reagan got us out. Republicans and Democrats are the same.
Yeah. Well,
how do we fight that?
You and I have a friend who would take issue with you in saying that Bill Clinton left with a surplus because of the Social Security borrowing, that there actually was not a surplus, but
there was less of a deficit than there is now.
Certainly, no question, a lot less of a deficit than what there is under Bush. And again, that's one of the big reasons why I'm not a Republican. Yeah. I'm not in one of the major parties anymore.
And they both seem to be afraid of offending the homosexuals.
Yeah.
And they both seem afraid to cut off the money to Planned Parenthood. They both seem afraid to enforce those provisions of the Constitution which, based on the personhood of the unborn, could stop abortion.
Well, the very things that the Republicans used to rail against, they are now embracing, and have become protectors of the welfare state, which they once decried.
Yeah, I remember when they were against Jimmy Carter's education department.
Absolutely.
Now they give it more money than ever before.
Well, it was a part of the Republican platform. Every convention since the time it was formed, up until the year 2000, when Bush, of course, wanted it out, did not want it to be part of the Republican platform. And as you said, now they've increased the funding for it greater than the Democrats could have ever dreamed, greater than Teddy Kennedy could have asked for. But it is an interesting phenomenon what happens when you have one party with the White House, another party with Congress. And we're
going to take a break. When we come back, I want to ask you about some of the barriers to competition in the political process. Republicans and Democrats get well over $100 million for a campaign at the national level. Their conventions get more than $15 million for their activities. We don't want government money because it's unconstitutional, but it's really unfair that they get it. Stay with us. Last words from Jim Clymer after these messages.
When you see the terrible decline in public morality, do you have a suspicion that something's gone wrong in America? Would you like to make a positive difference for freedom and for liberty? Institute on the Constitution is a historical study designed to teach you about the basic core ideas behind the Constitution, the ideas that built America. Call the number on the screen and learn more.
The Institute on the Constitution, 410-768-2280, www.instituteontheconstitution.com.
There are many conservative organizations, but the Conservative Caucus is unique in that our standard for evaluating public policy is the Constitution of the United States. Our goal is to advocate policies which conform to what the Constitution stipulates and to oppose those which undermine the Constitution. It's clear that the federal government has only those powers which are provided in the Constitution, which were initially delegated by the states to the federal government, or which were subsequently added by amendment. If we adhered to that principle, your taxes would be lower and your liberties would be more secure.
The Conservative Caucus, www.conservativeusa.org or 703-938-9626.
Welcome back. I'm Howard Phillips. This program has been brought to you by the Conservative Caucus. If you're interested in the kinds of issues we discuss on Conservative Roundtable, please check out our website, www.conservativeusa.org, or write to us at 450 Maple Avenue East, Vienna, Virginia 22180, or fax us at 703-281-4108. And if you want to be in touch with Jim Clymer and the Constitution Party, it's constitutionparty.org, or you can call, .com, constitutionparty.com, or call 1-800-2-VETO-IRS. Jim, there's not much time left. What are some of the barriers which must be overcome in order to compete with the big boys, the major parties?
Well, of course, a big barrier that we face every election cycle is ballot access, and some states make it exceedingly difficult to get on the ballot. We have to spend sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars to get on the ballot.
In a single state?
In a single state,
In
that's
Pennsylvania,
right.
You collected about 35,000 this year.
And we collected over 35,000 to get on the ballot.
We collected about 25,000 in Virginia to get on the ballot.
And that compares with 1,000 signatures that somebody needs to get on the ballot for the major parties.
And as a candidate, but the parties themselves are automatically on by state law in most states. My friends, thank you for joining us for this broadcast. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Jim Clymer.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.